At 80, Joe Theismann speaks with the calm tone of a man who has lived long enough to understand which memories fade and which memories refuse to die. The public remembers him for the glitter of Washington glory, for the night he lifted a championship, and for the single moment when a nation watched his leg snap beneath the stadium lights. But those who look closer know there were deeper truths behind the man who once believed destiny had chosen him. Truths he never fully admitted until now. Because when Joe Theismann finally looked back at the path that shaped him, he did not talk first about the trophies or the spotlight. He talked about the hidden fractures beneath the surface, the mentors he trusted then lost, the rivals who pushed him toward greatness, the decisions that haunted him, and the dark turning points that defined every step of his rise and every shadow of his fall. The man who once sprinted toward the spotlight now speaks about the price of chasing it. He speaks about the 5 hidden truths that shaped his life far more than any highlight reel ever could. And he asks a question that has followed him through decades of fame, injury, regret, and redemption. A question he can finally confront now that time has stripped away the noise. What does a man discover when the cheers fade, the bright lights dim, and he is left alone with the real story behind his legacy? Before the world knew Joe Theismann as a champion, or remembered him for one of the most devastating injuries in football history, he was simply a kid from New Jersey who believed he could outwork anyone. From the earliest days of his childhood, competition shaped him. He was fast, confident, and fiercely determined to prove that his talent could carry him further than anyone expected. That confidence followed him through high school and into Notre Dame, where he stepped into national attention with a remarkable blend of poise and ambition. He believed pressure revealed character, and he wanted every ounce of it. When Washington eventually became his home, he walked into a franchise searching for direction. The team was a mirror of the man he wanted to become: tough, resilient, hungry. Under the bright lights of the Capitol, Theismann found a stage large enough to match his ambitions. He studied film late into the night. He challenged teammates who settled for less. He embraced a style built on intensity and precision. He wanted to control the rhythm of every game, and he expected the same discipline from anyone who lined up beside him. But Washington was also a place shaped by tension. Inside the locker room, personalities clashed. On Sundays, expectations weighed heavily on the shoulders of anyone who touched the ball. Theismann thrived in that environment. He understood that order often fought against chaos. He saw grit collide with glamour in every practice. He knew that greatness demanded sacrifice, and he learned early that sacrifice rarely came without conflict. The championship season revealed the best version of his qualities: leadership sharpened by failure, confidence balanced by experience, a drive that refused to slow even when the body ached and the doubts grew. For a moment, he felt untouchable. Yet beneath that success lived something deeper: the unspoken cost of becoming the face of a franchise, the quiet resentment of rivals who believed he received more credit than he deserved, the pressure from coaches who demanded perfection, and the knowledge that every quarterback lives on the edge of a single play that can change everything. That moment arrived on a silent November night when a routine snap turned into one of the most unforgettable scenes in American sports. The stadium fell still, careers were defined, futures were rewritten, and Joe Theismann learned that a legacy can be fractured in one heartbeat. The man who emerged from that night was no longer defined only by triumph, but by the hidden truths that shaped him. Truths forged through rivalry, ambition, loyalty, and regret. Truths he would revisit long after the applause faded. Before Joe Theismann became the unquestioned leader of Washington's offense, there was a figure whose shadow loomed over every decision that shaped his early career. This was a veteran coach known for disciplined caution and a rigid belief that quarterbacks should fit into a system rather than challenge it. To many players, he was respected. To some, he was feared. And to Joe Theismann, He became the first barrier he had to break through. The coach believed Theismann was talented but unpolished, bold but unpredictable, brilliant but risky. Their relationship rested on a fragile line between trust and suspicion. From the moment Theismann arrived, the coach viewed him with both interest and hesitation. The young quarterback wanted freedom. He wanted the authority to change protections. He wanted to adjust routes. He wanted to improvise when the moment demanded it. The coach wanted order. He wanted structure. He wanted strict execution of his system. That conflict created tension in film rooms and practice fields. Theismann pushed for innovation. The coach wanted restraint. When decisions were made about playing time, the coach often leaned toward safer options, which only fueled Theismann's frustration. He believed he could elevate the offense. The coach believed risk threatened everything they were building. Their conflict reached its turning point during a season defined by pressure and uncertainty. Washington had been struggling on offense, and the crowd demanded a spark. Theismann believed he could provide it if he were finally given full command. Late in a game, filled with misfires, stalled drives, and rising tension, the coach called a conservative series designed to protect field position rather than pursue victory. Theismann saw an opening in the secondary. He knew the defense was vulnerable. He changed the play at the line with a quiet confidence that echoed through the huddle. The ball snapped. Theismann fired a strike downfield for a crucial first down. The stadium erupted. His teammates rallied around him. But on the sideline, the coach did not celebrate. He demanded answers. In his eyes, Theismann had not executed brilliance. He had violated structure. Their argument behind the bench became one of the most defining early clashes of Theismann's career. For the first time, he understood that his path to greatness would require more than talent. It would require breaking free from the coach who refused to trust him. The play ignited talk throughout the organization. Some believed Theismann had proven he deserved control of the offense. Others believed the coach was right to fear his boldness. But the divide was clear. They were two leaders with two visions, and only one could guide the team forward. Joe Theismann never forgot that early battle. He saw it as the moment he learned that greatness is never handed to a quarterback. It must be claimed. The cold truth is that the coach who doubted him became the first hidden force that shaped his rise. Theismann moved forward. The coach remained unconvinced. Their rivalry never healed. And the tension between caution and confidence forged the fire that drove him toward the legacy he eventually claimed. Every quarterback needs a trusted ally, someone who believes in the plan, matches the intensity, and carries the same hunger for victory. For Joe Theismann, that role should have belonged to a veteran skill player whose reputation was built on toughness and stubborn pride. He was talented, respected, and known throughout the league for his ability to take over a game when he chose to. Yet beneath the surface, he carried an unspoken belief that the offense should run through him, not through the man under center. His confidence clashed directly with Theismann's leadership and created a quiet but powerful divide inside the locker room. The conflict began subtly. A missed route here. A refusal to adjust a play there. A shrugged response during film sessions when Theismann pointed out mistakes. For the veteran, this was about hierarchy. He had been on the roster long before the quarterback arrived and believed his experience earned him the right to challenge any decision. Theismann saw it differently. To him, leadership required unity. Every receiver, every back, and every tight end needed to move in sync, or the entire offense fell apart. But every time he demanded discipline, the veteran pushed back. What started as small disagreements became a pattern. Each clash chipped away at trust. The turning point arrived during a high-stakes divisional game in a season filled with tension. Washington needed a win to keep its playoff hopes alive. Theismann entered the huddle with a look of determination. He called a timing route that the veteran had executed countless times. It was a play built on rhythm, a quick drop, a precise cut, a trust that the ball would be delivered exactly where it needed to be. The ball snapped. Theismann hit his back foot and released the pass, but the veteran broke off the route, ignoring the design and improvising his own adjustment. The defensive back jumped the throw. The interception swung momentum, silenced the crowd, and put Washington into a spiral that cost them the game. On the sideline, Theismann confronted him. Words were exchanged. The tension spread across the bench. Coaches stepped in, but the damage had already been done. Inside the locker room, players whispered about the divide. Some believed the veteran resented losing influence. Others believed he simply refused to be led by someone he viewed as too demanding. For Theismann, the moment exposed a truth he could no longer ignore. Leadership cannot survive when a teammate rejects the foundation that holds an offense together. Joe Theismann never forgot the way that game unraveled. He carried it as a reminder that talent means nothing without trust. The cold truth is that this teammate never fully accepted his authority. Their partnership fractured. Theismann pushed forward. The veteran drifted out of the spotlight, and the divide between them became one of the hidden truths behind Washington's internal battles during Theismann's rise. In every era of football, there is always one defender who plays with a force that feels less like technique and more like a declaration. For Joe Theismann, that defender was a relentless pass rusher, known for his violent pursuit of quarterbacks and for the cold intensity that marked his presence on every snap. He was respected across the league for his power, feared for his physicality, and admired for his refusal to take a play off. Yet buried beneath that reputation was a growing resentment toward Theismann. Their paths crossed too often and too violently for their relationship to remain professional. Their conflict began with simple competitiveness. Theismann played fast, decisive football. The defender played with a mission to punish any quarterback who dared stand confident in the pocket. But as games accumulated, each hit carried a little more force. Each pressure felt more personal. The defender believed Theismann talked too much during pre-snap reads. He believed the quarterback's confidence bordered on arrogance. Theismann saw the defender as overly aggressive and dangerously reckless. Words were exchanged during games. Shoves followed plays. Each meeting added fuel to a rivalry that grew beyond schemes or assignments. It evolved into a running battle defined by pride. Their rivalry found its defining moment during a nationally televised game, where emotions simmered from the opening whistle. Washington needed protection. Theismann needed time. The defender needed only one moment to make a statement. Late in the second quarter, Theismann dropped back for a deep route designed to expose the secondary. He scanned downfield as the pocket tightened. He stepped up, trusting his lineman to hold, but the defender exploded through a gap that had opened for only a second. He closed in with the full force of his signature style. The collision sent Theismann to the turf. The air rushed out of the stadium. Players circled around the quarterback as trainers ran onto the field. The defender paced away without looking back. To him, it was a victory. In a personal war he believed he had been fighting for seasons. Theismann eventually rose and returned to the game, but the hit left more than physical pain. It carved a mark in his memory. In film sessions that week, he watched the play again and again. Not because the technique failed, but because he saw in the defender's eyes a desire to do more than sack a quarterback. He wanted to break the rhythm of a man he viewed as a rival. Joe Theismann carried that memory long after the bruises healed. The cold truth is that this defender transformed routine competition into something darker. Their rivalry became a private battlefield where respect and hostility collided. Theismann moved forward. The defender never apologized. And the tension between them became one of the hidden truths that shaped the edge Theismann carried through the rest of his career. Every franchise has an executive who controls the silent machinery behind contracts, roster moves, and long-term strategy. For Joe Theismann, That figure was a powerful front office leader known for his sharp judgment and unemotional approach to building a team. He valued stability, efficiency, and financial discipline. He believed every player could be replaced and every decision needed to serve the long game rather than individual ambition. To him, Theismann was a talented but volatile asset. To Theismann, this executive became the first person inside the organization who viewed him not as a leader, but as a number calculated on a balance sheet. The divide emerged during contract discussions that exposed the gulf between how Theismann saw himself and how the executive valued his contributions. The quarterback believed he had earned respect through performance leadership and willingness to carry the offense during its most turbulent seasons. The executive disagreed. He questioned whether Theismann's peak years would last. He questioned whether his bold style made him a long-term risk. He even questioned whether the team might benefit from exploring younger options. For Theismann, the negotiations felt like a dismissal of everything he had sacrificed. For the executive, it was simply business. That cold approach ignited one of the deepest conflicts of Theismann's career. The standoff reached its most dramatic moment when rumors leaked that the team had quietly evaluated potential replacements. The news hit the locker room like a storm. Teammates whispered, coaches avoided the topic. Theismann confronted the situation head-on. He walked into the executive's office with the confidence of a man determined to defend his identity. He wanted answers. He wanted clarity. He wanted recognition for what he had built. The executive listened without emotion. He reiterated that the organization must always prepare for future transitions. He insisted no player was above evaluation. To him, it was a routine conversation. To Theismann, it felt like betrayal. He had led the franchise through triumph and adversity. He had devoted every ounce of energy to elevating the team. Yet here he stood, hearing that his place was never as secure as he believed. The meeting created a fracture that followed them throughout the season. Even as Theismann delivered crucial victories and rallied teammates during high-pressure moments, the tension remained. The executive continued to view him through a calculating lens. Theismann continued to play with a fire, fueled by doubt. The relationship became a silent duel between belief and strategy. Joe Theismann never forgot how easily loyalty could be questioned in the upper floors of a franchise building. The cold truth is that the executive never fully believed in him and never intended to. To the front office, he was a piece of a puzzle rather than the heartbeat of a team. Their conflict became one of the hidden truths that shaped Theismann's understanding of the business he once viewed through a lens of passion and commitment. He moved on. The executive remained unmoved, and the divide between them never truly closed. There are rivalries built on competition. There are rivalries built on pride. And then there is the rivalry that history remembers not for words or strategy, but for one moment that rewrote the destiny of two men. For Joe Theismann, that figure was the linebacker whose strength, speed, and instinct made him one of the most feared defenders of his era. He was a master of angles, a hunter of quarterbacks, a presence who carried the energy of a natural force. During their matchups, he played with a purpose that felt personal. Their paths collided again and again until fate delivered the play that would change football forever. Theismann respected the linebacker for his relentlessness, but believed he crossed the line between aggression and danger far too often. The linebacker respected Theismann's intelligence, but believed the quarterback carried himself with a confidence that demanded to be challenged. Their meetings grew increasingly hostile. Each sack left a message. Each pre-snap adjustment sparked tension. Their rivalry simmered through seasons defined by playoff battles, primetime matchups, and moments when the linebacker delivered hits that carried more force than the play required. Both men understood their roles. Both understood the stakes. But neither could have predicted that their rivalry would culminate in one of the most iconic and devastating plays in American sports. It happened on a Monday night that began like any other game under the bright lights of the nation's capital. Washington lined up for a trick play designed to catch the defense off balance. Theismann believed the moment could shift momentum. He took the snap and stepped forward with confidence. But on the opposite side of the field, the linebacker read the play a heartbeat faster than anyone else. He knifed through traffic with terrifying precision. Theismann never saw him. The collision arrived with a sound that silenced millions of viewers. Bodies tangled, legs folded. The quarterback fell beneath the force of a defender who had built a career on intensity. Theismann reached for his leg but found only a reality that had shattered in an instant. Teammates waved urgently for help. The linebacker paced away, shaken, yet expressionless. The crowd watched a moment that would be replayed for decades. That night did not just end a season, it ended a story. Theismann's career, once rising toward greater heights, closed abruptly on the turf. The linebacker's legacy became forever intertwined with the image of that single play. The rivalry did not end with Shov's words or grudges. It ended with finality. It ended with silence. It ended with the moment that defined both men more than any statistic ever could. Joe Theismann carried no hatred for the linebacker, only the understanding that football had delivered its harshest truth through the hands of a man who had always played at full force. The cold truth is that their rivalry ended not with revenge or victory, but with fate. Theismann's journey stopped where the linebacker's momentum began. That moment became the greatest hidden truth of his legacy. A truth born from pain, shaped by destiny, and forever etched into the memory of every fan who watched the game that ended everything. When Joe Theismann transitioned from the field to the broadcast booth, he expected analysis to feel cleaner than competition. No hits, no broken plays, no collisions that altered careers. What he did not expect was a different kind of opponent. A fellow broadcaster whose sharp tongue, polished delivery, and unapologetically blunt critiques followed him into every studio they shared. This broadcaster was admired by audiences for his honesty. He was admired by producers for his clarity. He was admired by executives for his ability to turn any segment into a conversation fans debated long after the show ended. But behind the lights and microphones, he carried a persistent belief that Theismann's career had been defined by one moment rather than an entire body of work. Theismann tried to rise above it. The broadcaster continued to press the point. Their friction grew during a live segment in which the broadcaster insisted that the legendary injury remained the only reason many remembered Theismann. The quarterback responded with poise. He highlighted his championship, his leadership, and the seasons in which he carried Washington through adversity. The broadcaster countered with a tone that suggested he was unmoved. The exchange created an unease that spread across the studio. Producers shifted in their seats. Viewers sensed the tension. For Theismann, the frustration did not come from disagreement. It came from the knowledge that someone he worked beside daily continued to reduce his entire life in football to a single night under bright lights. The cold truth is that this broadcaster became an unexpected reminder of how easily a legacy can be misunderstood. And long after the cameras shut off, Theismann carried that tension as one more hidden truth in the story he never stopped trying to reclaim. Every legend leaves behind a trail of triumphs and wounds that shape the story history chooses to remember. For Joe Theismann, that trail began long before championships or broken bones. It began with a belief that greatness was earned through conviction, through preparation, through a refusal to back down when the world pushed back. Yet the deeper truth is that his legacy was not formed by moments when the spotlight embraced him. It was formed by the moments when resistance met him at every turn. The coach who doubted him taught him that leadership demands more than talent. It requires a willingness to push against the expectations of those who believe caution is safer than courage. In film rooms and sideline arguments, Theismann learned that every quarterback must fight for the right to guide a team. He learned that authority is never handed to the man who hesitates. It is handed to the man who insists on shaping the offense in his own image. That early battle became the foundation of his confidence. It sharpened his voice. It gave him the steel he would need for every challenge that followed. The teammate who resisted his leadership revealed a harder truth. Not every player wants to be led. Not every player respects the man who stands in the center of the huddle. Theismann discovered that unity is fragile. One fractured relationship can shake the rhythm of an entire offense. The interception that changed that divisional game became more than a mistake. It became a symbol of how easily trust can collapse. It showed him that leadership requires not only authority but connection, not only vision but buy-in, not only strength but the ability to hold a team together even when individual pride threatens to tear it apart. The defender who turned competition into hostility forced Theismann to confront football in its purest and most brutal form. Every snap became a duel. Every hit carried a message. Their collisions taught him that courage is not simply stepping into a throw. It is stepping into a throw, while knowing that a force of nature is sprinting toward you with the sole intent of stopping you. That rivalry carved a sharp edge into Theismann's mentality. It reminded him that greatness is often shaped by the opponents who refuse to let you breathe. And long after the bruises faded, the memory of that defender's intensity stayed with him as a reminder that the price of playing this game is paid in pain. The executive who questioned his value delivered a truth even more unsettling than violence on the field. It was the truth that the business of football can cut deeper than any hit. Contracts, rumors, evaluations whispered behind closed doors. All of it challenged Theismann's sense of belonging. He discovered that loyalty and legacy mean little in boardrooms where the future is measured in dollars and projections. That coldness hardened him. It made him understand that his worth could never be defined by someone who saw him as replaceable. It strengthened his resolve to define his own legacy through action, not negotiation. Then came the linebacker, who ended everything. The moment that paused a nation. The moment that bent the course of two careers. For years, Theismann had played with boldness. He embraced risk. He believed he could shape any play and rise from any hit. But on that night, the game delivered its most unforgiving truth. It reminded him that careers do not end with ceremonies or quiet farewells. Sometimes they end in a flash of lights, a collapsing body, and a silence that stretches across decades. Yet, what followed that night became the true measure of the man. He did not surrender to bitterness. He did not resent the linebacker. He chose reflection instead of anger. He chose acceptance instead of blame. And as time passed, that moment transformed from a tragedy into a symbol of resilience. It revealed a truth Theismann had spent his entire life preparing to understand, a truth that bound every conflict, every rivalry, and every challenge together. Greatness is not the absence of pain. It is the ability to rise with dignity once pain arrives. Even the broadcaster who minimized his achievements became part of this larger understanding. He was a reminder that perception often shapes legacy more loudly than facts. Yet Theismann never fought to rewrite the public's memory. He spoke of his journey with clarity. He acknowledged its peaks and its darkness. He embraced the duality that defined him, a champion shaped by triumph, a survivor shaped by fracture. As he looks back in his later years, the pieces of his story fall into alignment. The coach taught him to demand leadership. The teammate taught him to defend unity. The defender taught him to stand firm in the face of fear. The executive taught him to believe in his own worth. The linebacker taught him the fragility of time. And the entire path taught him that legacy is not written by a single moment, whether glorious or devastating. It is written by how a man carries the weight of every moment that came before. Joe Theismann's journey lives today not as a footnote of injury, but as a testament to resilience, a testament to the strength required to face the hidden truths that shaped him, a testament to the way a man can rise, fall, and rise again in spirit, long after the cheering ends. Joe Theismann's story is a reminder that every legacy carries layers the public rarely sees. His journey was shaped by conflict resilience and the silent pressures that follow a man who steps into the huddle with a city on his shoulders. Some of his truths were forged through rivalry. Some were born from doubt. Others emerged only after time allowed him to look back without anger or fear. And now that he has revealed the pieces that shaped him, the conversation shifts to you. Which moment from his journey speaks the loudest? Was it the struggle with a teammate who refused to follow his lead? Was it the defender who turned competition into a personal war? Was it the executive who viewed him as a statistic rather than a leader? Or was it the night that ended his career and became the image history refused to let go? Every fan carries a different memory of Joe Theismann. Some remember the championship. Some remember the confidence that defined him. Some remember the courage he showed in the face of fear. And some remember the silence that followed the play that changed everything. But the deeper question remains. How should his legacy be defined by the triumphs he earned or by the truths he carried through every victory and every wound? If you have followed his story through the hidden truths and the moments that shaped him, share your thoughts below. Which rivalry or revelation surprised you the most? Which chapter of his life changed the way you see this era of football? And if you want more journeys like this, subscribe to NFL Hidden Truths. For deeper stories from football's golden age, the legends of the past still have truths left to reveal, and we will be here to uncover every one of them.